Come back and look at this we're spiritual but we're not religious kind of look at just a minute. But building on that from a practical standpoint, we as the church looking at these individuals and without just the trite answer of we'll be more transparent, how can we as Christians individually, how can we as Christians collectively as the church, how can we do more than pander for votes by, getting a new sign out front that says, look, we're transparent. What can we do? And let's just, each one of you contribute a little bit, if you would, to that. Cliff, how can we as the church be, quote unquote, transparent enough that the millennials will believe or be more trusting in the truth that we have?
I think as a millennial, we enjoy honest and open discussions. As Caleb kind of alluded to, sometimes difficult topics are avoided and we're not challenged. I think part of being challenged is part of understanding that there's things that maybe you haven't fully grasped or there's areas you need to grow and work upon. And I think if a congregation is challenging me or the church, in the Bible class or anything along those lines, I think that allows for transparency because I can see that, hey, maybe my instructor, my teacher, or this mentor that I have, he doesn't believe he has it all together. He's not trying to fake it. I see, that's why you see a lot of, open sharing and coffee house kind of Christianity type mentality because we want to connect to people on a relational level. And I think if you allow me to get to know you and you get to know me and we together challenge each other to grow and do better, that transparency is naturally there. And I think that's even the rebellion against authority you might see. Is an authority figure is separate from, the people underneath their authority. We don't want that. We want to see, camaraderie and teamwork, and I think that breeds transparency.
Okay, you use that word to challenge. How can we be, and I'm not saying you can't, I'm just saying what's the difference between challenging the way the millennial views challenging? In other words, you're challenging me to do something different and I'm being challenged, which is the finger in the face or the hand in the, you know what I'm saying? In other words, I don't like being challenged like that. I mean, or is there a difference? We have a tendency as the generation before to go, I just wanted to challenge them. And they went, no, all you did was criticize.
You tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Case in point, and Dan Owen's in the audience. When you watch Dan Owen work through a text and you're in his class, you're like, I want to be able to do that. That challenges me. That says, I want to go there. I want to be able to do that. I want that level. And so the challenge really comes by not just saying, you guys and your generation, you need to, but saying, look, here's what we're doing. Look what we're achieving. And showing something, again, I come back to this. Millennials want to see results. Like when you sit in his class, he gets results. You see something out of that. So he obviously has a method. He knows something that's going to produce results. I want to know that, and that challenges me to move on.
And he didn't just tell you what the Bible said. You got to see through it.
Right. Helped you to see it for yourself.
Okay, Tyler, from your perspective, because I think you're barely the youngest of the bunch.
Hey, just for the record, this guy was in Cliff and I's cabin when we were at
Fifth and sixth grade.
Fifth and sixth grade, and we were also his teacher.
Oh, in that case, I'll rephrase that. At camp, you were the mature one of your cabin. Is that what you're saying to me? Okay. In that case, could you interject some maturity here?
Someday I'll tell you a little story about a question he asked in class, but I'll be off camera.
Please text your questions for Tyler to 209. But as a guy that's just a little bit younger than these guys, you chiming in on that? You buying that, or do you see something a little bit different?
It's just interesting listening, just because obviously these guys have thought and studied obviously they're part of this generation, but at the same time have done a lot of thinking on how millennials think. And here I am up here I guess I am one. It's part of the
I started saying, did you know you were a millennial before you got here?
It was like a week ago.
Congratulations.
Or like
We're glad to have identified that for you.
But with what Cliff had mentioned a second ago, you're talking about, how we think and I can't speak to everybody, and maybe that's part of how I think in the first place, that the labels become quite difficult sometimes as someone who's part of this generation. Within a few years, you are this, you are that, and that can be difficult sometimes because, like I said, part of why we think the way we do and act the way we act is a reaction to certain things we've seen before, and why we want things to be different. To echo, though, something that Cliff had just mentioned a second ago, part of the reason that the coffee house type of thing works, or small groups that had mentioned, different things like, it's genuine, it's real, it's authentic. that's real life where you meet in people's homes and you have a meal or something like that. And to many in our own generation, the idea of going to worship or a set Bible study isn't a part of that because it wasn't a part of their normal life before and it wasn't part of their regular regimen to begin with. And so that is part of the difficulty, that transition from that to that afterwards. But yeah,
Wesley?
What was the question again?
Which one? We have a variety of them. No, from the standpoint
They
of,
have short attention spans, too.
yeah, I'm sorry, what did you say? I'm trying to look as young as I can here. No, I just want that idea of, we hear words like traditional religion or formalized. We know that millennialists, as a general sense, aren't really as interested in politics, for example, because it doesn't work. But I want, how can we promote that transparency or it does work, without just being, well, of course it does. If you take the green pill, everything will work, that kind of an idea.
Well, I think it's a matter of the church doing what we say we are. The church not simply being a place to where a message is preached, but a place where the message is actually lived out.
amen.
If I get up there each Sunday and talk about how we should love people, but the church is not seen as loving, if I get up there each Sunday and preach about how we should care about the needs of our community, but we never do anything for our community, or if I get up there and say we should be evangelizing people who are lost, but I myself not doing it, then I think they see past that and say, okay, these people have a great message, but they don't really believe it because they're not doing it. And who wants to be a part of a group or an organization that has a message that no one's actually doing? I think if the church lived out what we see in Acts, if that was really consistently what we did, and this is very broad, there are a lot of great churches that are doing great things, but if that's what we did, then it wouldn't be a matter of a disconnect. Here's your message, this isn't working. Why is it not working? Because no one's doing what they say they're going to do on a Sunday. They go to church on Sunday, they feel good about, they either feel bad or feel good at the end of the service, then they go eat at Wendy's and they forget about everything that just happened. And so unless the church begins to actually put that into place, that'll be the biggest difference. The biggest, apologetic, how do we get people back into the church is going to be the church faithfully living out what Jesus told us to do. And I think that's where you have the disconnect removes itself from, why do we hate politicians? Because we view politicians as liars. Why do we have a generation, for the most part, just says, I don't really need the church? Because we view the church as liars. They're saying a message, but they're not actually living that out day by day.
Okay.
There's a lot of talk about separation between church and state. I think it's separation between church and life. They see church as this separate component that doesn't really have practical application in my life. Maybe I feel a little guilty about not going because I was raised going, or I should be going because of that, but they don't really see what they're getting out of church as having anything relevant to life. And it kind of goes back to what Wesley was saying, is you go in your rah-rah message, everybody's amen, amen, and then you go out to eat afterwards, and then from the moment you walk out the door, the rest of the time, they never really see any difference. It's like, they see a total difference between what's being said and what they're seeing lived. And so they're saying, why would I want to be a part of that? I want something real. I want something authentic. I want something that's really going to change my life. And what I'm seeing is I'm not seeing those results coming out of that. Why would I go to there?
Not to mention the popular expression of Christianity that they're seeing is such a meaningless, valueless thing that's how they're viewing Christianity. Either the televangelist or the megachurch type of mindset that really is not offering anything deep. It's all shallow and superficial. So why go there just to have something shallow and
Okay, and I
superficial?
think that's a misconception about our generation, too, is that we want, and obviously I'm a member of the Lord's church, but I mean, our generation wants this community church, mega church, everything for me kind of mentality. I don't think our generation wants that. We want, as all these terms that keep being brought out, authentic, challenged, genuine, honest. I mean, your purpose-driven church and all that kind of stuff isn't really genuine. It's all about what can I get out of it and not about...
Well, Cliff, you talk a lot about service. I mean, if you tie that in with our group, I think we have a group that every generation has kind of non-negotiables. I think the idea of a church is a place that gets involved in the community in social aspects. Now, we don't go, we're kind of scared of that social aspect. We have social gospel, but the idea of we're meeting needs of the community is, I think, one of those things where if a church is not doing that, then I think people our age kind of step back and say, What's the point of this?
So-
That's
so
a
do you think-
non-negotiable.
it's something
do you
of
think-
value.
But do you think that it's interesting, it's an interesting dichotomy because you have the me generation that is extremely interested in civil, not so much the let's save the planet kind of civil thing, but what about us? What about people and homes and shelters and all that? Those are interesting concepts when you throw them both and say they're in the same bag. Is it because they're wanting to see, if you will, a result?
Yeah,
In other words, spirituality, it's hard to measure a result, right? I'm more spiritual
It-
there. But that's something tangible or that
And-
I
and-
can
and
do?
I don't know if the me generation is I think maybe that's part of the problem is the stereotyping the millennials as the me generation.
Amen.
That we want to be effective people in life and influencing other people, right? I mean, I think the general makeup that I run across, the guys that I do jujitsu with that are millennials, the guys that Cliff does jujitsu with that are millennials, you know, they're thinking about other people and they want to make a difference in their lives. So they want to be better so that they can help other people. And maybe that's too broad of a paintbrush stroke, but I think we've been way too broad paintbrush stroke saying it's just they're so self-centered. Well, our generation, I think the millennials are self-centered, but in a lot of ways because they want to make an impact in their communities. They want to make an impact in the world.
So it's
they
the
want to be better.
what can I do?
Right. How
In
can
other
I
words-
get better so that I can help other people?
That's not painting too good. There are some
Well, yeah.
self-centered people
I mean,
in every
this
generation.
guy here is the most self-centered
So, yeah,
guy I've
that-
ever met in my
Yeah.
life, you know, but
Great. Now
that's,
Yeah, no,
you can
thank
leave now. We've got self-confession time. Let me go back to something that, and